This meeting is being recorded.
We're not good about it when it's very hot. And she's a husky, so.
I have to pull this out, put it back in for some reason.
Restart.
The light's being
Turn it on,
treated.
turn it off, turn it on again.
Oh, wait. What isn't? Just use the regular microphone, a regular battery in it. Okay. I tell you, there is no predicting those things.
You need an IT person here. Not that you haven't become very adept at it.
Oh, but
It's
but
just,
that is
it's
just
gotta
not.
be.
An assistant, because you've got other jobs.
Yeah, you
There's
have-
also just not there's nothing intuitive for me about that.
No, me either.
Me either.
Oh, gosh.
That probably should be listed in here somewhere. They need to update this. Those of us who are technologically challenged probably belong to one of these clusters.
There might be folks who tend to be more so.
I know, because you're going to Europe.
Yeah, it's not, I'm not, I don't know how many skill set, in terms of just specific skill sets, different types, because I think they would say that people can do, that anybody of any type can do a variety of things. I don't know if I know the Myers-Briggs often makes some connections with vocations. But I don't know if this has done that much
I haven't
with that. I don't know
seen
if they
it.
really try to do that.
Yeah.
Have you seen any statistics about the prevalence of the various types?
I have not.
Or the,
That's a good
gender
question.
The
differences or
gender
anything like
differences,
that?
and I'd love to know if there are differences in terms of countries,
Yeah, that's.
Or heritage.
their heritage, yeah.
Are all the Germans ones and
I'm
threes?
sure. I'm sure there probably are, Rich, that I've not seen it in the
So-
things that I have seen.
Will Anna be in school at Notre Dame in the fall, Julie?
She's been in school, she's doing her research now in Palestine.
So she's back there, huh?
She's in Palestine
Wow.
and has COVID.
Oh dear.
She was exposed at Notre Dame.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, she's just flown there and can't remember what day she's had a fever of 102.
Oh my.
I was surprised that her mom said that she was got it probably from somebody in her Aramaic class. And
In her Aramaic class.
yeah, at Notre Dame, but it was like, why would you, she's just traveled international. Why would you think it's come from? But I'm sure she
Really?
probably took a lot of precautions when she was traveling.
Uh-huh.
And that class is small, and so they weren't masking, so.
Yeah. There are a couple handouts, just
Oh,
as you're
sure.
walking in.
Oh, missed it.
You want one for each of you? There's.
There are plenty.
they're coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then my course is tomorrow in Newtown, so it manages the cabinet. I sent this on top.
Oh.
He said, what the.
My niece Allison had been
Layers
there.
of it. So I'm just gonna be
Even
real
though
forward. So we're downsizing.
her sister
What's going on with it was, isn't it? He said, if it were the Duchess Cup, which is the way to go, he said, it's really.
Until the med school.
So he's at the state.
I had order of attendees. Tested positive for COVID the next day.
And this new variant is just crazy contagious.
Well, but when Erin had it the second time, what scared me the most is she didn't have respiratory symptoms. She lost the taste and smell like the first time. It was all heart palpitations,
Oh.
and all the cardiac stuff. But Tina and Marvin,
That, but the story that you told is just haunting.
It is.
That is
that's
just
the rest of her life.
what it,
Kathy, back in Lexington. Her dad died a couple months after my dad. And we were at the,
Francie was exhausted earlier this summer. Saying COVID tested.
and she told me to take long
No,
message.
this is yesterday.
Oh, I'm talking about the one that came earlier.
And she was being more.
That's something about you did tell me about it, and you said things were cut off, and it was confusing.
This is what you just said. I don't know if it's this other stuff you're talking about.
I read it. and wrote theirs, and I couldn't answer.
Wild.
I have no idea where that soldier came from. It's an angel.
wow.
Maybe.
You made a big deal.
Stuff
about it, so you
happens.
weren't sure if you had that safe.
I'll never guess that.
That's an amazing story.
And that's why she existed
Yeah,
at all.
she would not be. That's
Right.
That's what's so freaky. It's like, wait, if that hadn't happened, yeah.
And then-
You just pulled a cord.
Oh,
so,
boy.
I don't know what happened, but I just saw things move.
That's everything's in place though, because
Oh,
that
it
is
was
white
definitely
cord.
modern.
Yeah, okay.
That white cord is the one that shows the screen. So as long as we can see
No, I don't.
the TV screen, then we are hooked up.
Just
But what
watch
about
it-
the
watch your
speaker?
foot on the white cord.
Yeah, okay, so.
Oh, the
I
battery,
get-
that battery though came out, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
but the
blue
other-
battery on the floor.
The other blue battery is not in
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we have real batteries, because neither of them, for some reason today, both of them stopped working with plug-in batteries, so we both just had to put in regular batteries. Yeah, as long as it's still on.
Hershey was good friends with lots of people. I don't.
I gotta find what he sent last night.
As soon as I could see the image, I'd know, but I'm not getting it. It's not flash.
Okay, let us get started. I know that some people are not gonna be, who are normally here, are not gonna be able to be here today, so I don't know who else will be joining us. Today, my intention is that this is the last session on the Enneagram. If it's by the end, if there are things that you wanna talk about more that we can talk about, that's totally fine. But my intention is that this be sort of our wrap up, at least for now. We can always revisit this down the road if, as you're living into it, more things come up. So just to start with, are there residual things from what we've talked about before that any of you wishes to bring up? And this isn't your only chance, and you can always follow up, you know, as you maybe have a chance to look at these materials more fully, as you try to live into your type. And if there's ever anything that you'd like to connect around, please, please, please know that I'm really happy to have conversations with you or whatever would be helpful. But is there anything that anyone would like to ask about from what we have done so far? I know there's a lot of material, and the intention isn't that you master the material as much that it's available for you if you wish to explore it more deeply. And that's a good example. That's for the thing that I handed out today, we're going to focus primarily on the Enneagram and spiritual practice. The other stuff that's is just more in-depth stuff that basically invite you to explore it as you wish. I thought that because of Brad Benow's class on the deadly, I keep forgetting, I keep wanting to call them deadly sins, but he called them the dispositions, that those have been attached to Enneagram numbers as well, that each Enneagram number has one of those. And one of the handouts speaks to that. And again, it's always fun to hear from you if you look at how it speaks to your particular type, whether or not it resonates for you. But again, yeah, so like I said, we're going to be working through this Enneagram and Spiritual Practice handout, which comes from this book, The Wisdom of the Enneagram. The other things are yours to look at as you wish, and just to hopefully have fun with. The spirit behind the Enneagram is to hold everything lightly. It really is. It's not to just like clutch at it or grasp at it or say, oh my gosh, this is gonna save me or whatever. No, it's a tool among many whose goal is to perhaps point some things out that some of the other personality typing tools do not, to help you live a life that isn't, that is freer. And to help you realize that you have more choices in how you respond to life, and that we're not doomed to always be stuck in the patterns that we're stuck in now. But the part of that is becoming aware and staying awake. Being awake, staying aware, and that's what we look at this section that I handed out for you today. That is something that will reinforce the importance of being alert and staying awake and being in the moment. So any questions about where we've come thus far? Okay. So looking then at this handout titled The Enneagram and Spiritual Practice. I think the writer helpfully acknowledges that the Enneagram is not a spiritual path. It can be part of any spiritual path. It can be information, it can offer us information for wherever we are and whatever we practice. But they said to use this information in a helpful kind of way, you need to do these three things that are on the front page of the handout. Becoming present and aware as much as possible throughout the day. All of us at times go through life on autopilot. It's exhausting if we're trying to be alert every waking moment. You're driving someplace and you sort of, your mind drifts, or just through the day, you're thinking about something that happened before or something that you're planning for in the future. As much as possible, no matter what your type. And there's some types that it's harder to do this than others. But for whatever your point, draw on the wisdom of that, becoming present and aware as much as possible throughout the day. That is the mantra of mindfulness, which has been all over. That word is just everywhere these days. But it's about being right here. Being present, noticing what's going on outside of you and noticing what's going on inside of you in the moment. Because what that can do is help you do number two, seeing your personality in action. This past week, Thursday morning, I was out on the front porch with my coffee and my journal, and I was doing my 20 minutes or so of meditation. And I suddenly found myself just sad. And I just felt heavy, and I felt like I just don't want to do anything. And I felt like, why am I here? Not existential, not why am I here, I want to die, but just, it was just sort of like, there was just a real super heaviness that was very familiar to me. From different times in my life. And so I started thinking, oh, I should journal about why am I so sad and all that stuff. And then remembering that we have been doing this class for the last 3 weeks, I kind of pulled myself back and intentionally chose, instead of seeing my personality in action, which is coming out of the wounded part of you. When it says seeing your personality in action, that doesn't mean, oh, I'm being chipper, or I mean this, it's like, it's watching the unhealthy aspects of you come forward. Because for me, I can get stuck in emotion. I can think my feelings are who I am. And so I am the sadness. As opposed to, so seeing that, and I was running with that, because that is my default. So I stopped, and instead of writing about sadness, I wrote about what is really beautiful in the world right now. And for me, that's what helps me not to act on my impulse, which is number 3. Acting on your impulse is responding to, for me, responding to those sad feelings and just going with them. As opposed, for some people, it's really helpful. For a 5 who doesn't live in the world of feelings, it can be very helpful to notice the sadness. Or for a 7 who hates pain, if those feelings of sadness are coming up, then you can notice that, because your personality will be to try to avoid that. It'll be to escape it. So being present in the moment helps you realize, okay, this is familiar territory, and I'm trying to risk going in more unfamiliar territory. I'm trying to risk being uncomfortable at times, which means not going to the autopilot place. So if, to the extent that we notice what's going on, to the extent that we're doing number 1 of being present and aware, we are able to see where we get stuck, see those familiar patterns of where we get stuck, and then we're able to choose not to go there, not to respond to what we normally would, not to do what we normally would, but to look on the right side of that very first thing I handed out that described the different types, that describe your types, to see what's healthy for you, what promotes your growth, and to focus more on those. So you see your personality in action, you don't immediately respond like it's the reflex response that it is, but you say, okay, now what do I remember about what's healthy for me and where my growth is and where I get stuck, because this might be a stuck place right now for me. And it was incredible to me what a difference that half an hour made for me on Thursday, of realizing that I was going right back down into that very familiar rabbit hole. And I could have written gorgeous journal entries about all the reasons I should be sad. And I would have gotten nowhere. That would have gotten me absolutely nowhere, but it's very familiar. So instead, I don't give into that impulse, but I say, there is I can focus on the here and now, which is one of the things that for 4, that's where my health. Healing for me is being right here.
And that's such an exciting time when you can act on an impulse. It makes a difference in life. In my life, I can't speak.
Wait, so say that you said when you act or when you don't act on an impulse.
When I do act on impulse.
Okay, now the impulse they're talking about here is the impulse to unhealthy.
I understand.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
Today's handouts, 9 passions. I just read the first paragraph, but I'm reading Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart.
Okay.
And I'm just in the beginning. I haven't finished. I have the audio book and the paper book, but she talks about emotions, and she started, like, in her research, there were 3 emotions: sad, mad, and glad. And that's what thinking, feeling, and doing. Well, then she goes, and still in the first chapter, she talks about the research and analysis of 27 emotions, and she describes those. And it's very interesting. But that's as far as I've gotten. But it's sort of interesting because I started to read the book, but then the audio book came. So I'm listening to that in the car. And so I've heard what I read, and it reinforces, and it's very different hearing the voice of the author than just reading the book silently and hearing it in your head.
So when you're saying it feels good to act on your impulses.
Yes, because yesterday I had plans, I had a telephone call, and the person said, come, blah, blah, blah. I I went, well, and that's just one of many experiences in my life, because I've learned to live in the present.
Mhm.
And if somebody says, let's go, let's see, let's do, the plans are gone.
Right.
And I picked up a book only because it said $3.
Okay.
Not too long ago, at Half Price Books, it's on angels. And it's really interesting.
Huh.
Because there are references in this book about God. So that's Christianity and Islam and the Jewish religion and relations of angels and these other
Mhm.
books.
Yeah.
And so it's very
That's fun.
interesting.
But just to say, but on this particular thing, when in the Enneagram, they're talking about not reacting out of your impulse, that's directly related to number 2, seeing your personality in action. And remember, personality is in opposition to your essence, your true self. We created the personality because our true self was not embraced sufficiently enough. So instead of somebody saying, oh, my personality is I'm this, and describing traits, as the Enneagram talks about personality, that is the unhealthy part of you that was formed, and part of me that was formed when we showed our essence and it was beaten down. Or we got the distinct message that that was not a good way to be in the world. You needed to do or be something else or think something else. So when they say personality in this, they are talking about the thing that you want to, by being aware, you can transcend that and let your true essence emerge. And that your impulse is what your personality is trying to get you to do, because it still doesn't trust your essential self will be honored. So in the Enneagram, impulse is not what you want to follow. Sometimes our impulse is great and we have great impulses and they take us good places. But this is very specific. My impulse was to revel in my sadness and write all about it. And it wouldn't, some people can write to get through something. And that's often how I find insight, is to write. But in the mood I was in on Thursday, all that would have done is drag me further down into that hole of sadness. So my impulse to write about it would simply have reinforced that false sense that something core in my life is missing and I will never be happy. I needed to veto that impulse. I needed to feel that impulse coming up and say, no, Dave, you can choose a different response, which made all the difference on Thursday.
I find what you're saying fascinating, because maybe, being a 5 or whatever, I come at it the opposite.
Okay.
I've felt the last few days, I felt very unsettled and very, my God, the whole world is going to fall apart, and it makes me mad. And my impulse was, well, put that away, write about something good. But then I thought, no, I should write about what I'm feeling so I can
Yes.
get in touch with it.
Yes.
And then, when I'm done, I feel so much better.
Yes.
It's like, okay, all that crap, now it's on the page. It's not in me so much.
Yeah.
And that was just the opposite.
Yeah,
thing.
but with the 5, that is because you often don't want, feelings are not the natural place for you to be living. So when something leads you to enter an unfamiliar place and risk giving that room in you, that is not responding to your personality or your impulse. That is responding to the health, to this newness, to this new possibility and this wider range of options. This thing is really about expanding our range of options in terms of how we respond to life. That it's not just reactive, but we can choose to respond in different ways. But yeah, it's a perfect example. And sometimes writing for me does take me to clarity. But in that particular place, I did not need to be living in my feelings. I needed to get out of those feelings and look around me and see the world around me and be grateful for the beauty that's there that I would not have noticed if I were.
Yeah.
But it's a great
And,
example.
exactly. What I found was that if I write through all that crap and that sadness, by the time I'm done writing 2 or 3 pages, I'm like, well, I think I just need to quit worrying about this and the things will work out.
Yeah.
And I'm fine.
Right. Yeah.
So in that sense, we're approaching it in very different ways that work differently for
Yes.
you than they do for me.
And that's the
because we're
beauty.
different people.
The beauty of it is there's not a one size fits all, but to the extent that the one size fits all is the attention to these 3 things, because each type can benefit from being present and aware, watching when that personality comes out and is trying to control things, and not doing what your personality tells you to do. Because that will be to avoid what it perceives to be something painful or threatening that you will be doing if you don't pay attention to its wisdom. If you trust that essential you can come out, it's afraid that you're going to get squashed again, and it will be devastating. So it's trying to keep you in safe territory. But healing is rarely found if we just stay in safe territory. Yeah, Michelle.
So one of my problems is, yes, I can be volatile and snippy with people and things if things are not going the way I anticipated them going. And sometimes I'm able to squash that and just like, don't be rude to these people, they're trying. But then, yeah, they're not perfect, you're not perfect,
Not
they're
very
not
hard.
perfect. You're not perfect, they're not perfect, chill.
Okay.
And I can rein it back, but then it stews.
So letting go of it is not.
Yeah, I'm not
something
letting go of it, I'm dragging
Yeah.
it back.
Mhm.
So I need something in the middle which releases it
Yeah.
through them or through some other way or through something, because I'm either all out there or I'm just, and the
Yeah.
vein pops in my forehead and
Yes, right. And
my
that's
jaw
no fun.
tightens up and,
Yeah.
Well, and it says here that in one, the anger is repressed.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
repressed anger, exactly.
yes. And
Exactly.
so, yeah, I need to find that.
So does that
Third way.
sheet help you?
Third
Um,
way is what's-
Yeah, I need the third way, and
Yeah,
I'm
just,
not-
I was wondering if this, the sheet from the very beginning, like the one in terms of looking at what is healthy for you.
how I can develop.
The
Appreciate
ultimate goal of my development.
there's more than one right way. Hmm.
That's a crap. Do I
Oh.
believe that?
Yeah. Accept imperfections. Mhm. Practice forgiving myself and others. Yeah, that's right. I'm really good at accepting God's forgiveness, but it doesn't, like, works fine. That doesn't work so well. Allow free time for pleasure and relaxation. I'm actually better at that. Question rigid rules and internal strictness. I can actually get on my high horse about that. Use resentment as a clue to suppressed wants or needs. Aha. Integrate desires and natural impulses into my life. Okay, I can work on those last couple of sentences.
Can you imagine letting go? Can you imagine, experiencing somebody messing up? Somebody's doing something really wrong, okay?
it doesn't even have to be wrong. It's just not to my expectation.
Okay, yeah. It's so as your, and again, this is your personality and act beautifully, your impulse, and it's an automatic, it sucks in, you draw it in, okay?
Right.
'Cause
Yeah,
if you acted-
either lash out,
Yeah.
in which case I've hurt a bunch of feelings.
Right. So the third way, so can you imagine what that could be? Even if you, right now, you can hardly imagine being able to do it, what could you do with that energy and with that feeling? If you're not gonna lash out and you're not gonna suck it up and just stew on it.
The only thing that comes to mind is that I might approach the person or persons and say, hey, what's happening or what's going on, or somehow this is not really, I'm confused about why this is happening this way, because this is not what I was anticipating.
Mhm.
I still feel kind of strangled. I don't know. I'm kind of lost, really.
Yeah.
And I've watched other people deal with it, and I have no idea how to. What you doing, Al?
We don't know each other yet. very
No.
well, hardly at all, but I'm just wondering, what kind of sense of humor do you have?
Oh, very dry and sarcastic.
Who's that?
I
Could that-
sometimes
could that
do,
be
but
drawn
sometimes the sarcasm like
without
is.
hurting?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, sometimes that sarcasm has a knife edge
It
to
can't,
it.
it can't, but what if it goes somewhere? If the sense of humor takes both of you and the other person off in another direction. I'm
Okay.
just wondering. That's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
question.
yeah. And that might work if it's so absurd that it's not hurtful, it's just funny, and it breaks the tension to get so we can land somewhere useful.
That's what I'm wondering. I just wonder. I have no idea.
How
Yeah.
could you, how are you able to laugh at yourself?
I am actually genuinely laughing at myself as I read these and going, oh my God. Whoa, my God, how is this possible? I do sometimes realize when I'm being too serious and too, the tables need to be arranged this way, or, I don't know,
So I'm just
my
curious.
longtime friends and former roommates can tell me the various ways that
As a fellow type, when I found this healing attitudes for the types to be helpful.
where are we? Okay, but I'm beyond passions.
Yeah.
No.
So that's in today's handout.
Okay.
The healing attitudes for the types.
Maybe others are right. Huh.
Maybe someone
Yeah.
else has
Maybe
maybe someone else has a
others are
better
right.
idea.
Ah.
Maybe others will learn for themselves. Maybe others. Those are helpful statements to me.
And I do genuinely have these ideas.
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But if they can take the anger that you're
Yeah.
holding down,
Yeah.
I thought one of the most ingenious things that J.K. Rowling did in the Harry Potter stories was the creature called the Boggart. And what the Boggart is, it's a shapeshifter. And when it comes to before you, it takes the shape of the thing that you fear the most.
Right.
And the
Okay.
only way to get rid of it is if you laugh at it. You imagine it looking absolutely ridiculous. So one of the students was terrified of one of the professors, absolutely terrified of one of the professors at Hogwarts School. And so what he did to take the power away from this thing that comes to him in the form he fears the most is he dresses it, he imagines this professor who's a male dressed in his grandmother's clothes. And so the bug art is this professor who just hates this student, and the student is terrified of the professor. And he is able to imagine this professor, so suddenly the professor then is wearing his grandmother's clothes. And the charm, that what you say, the spell you say is ridiculous because you're making it look ridiculous. But the idea of being able to laugh in some way and take what you fear the most and to laugh at it. And sometimes, so I don't even know if you're able to see your personality in action. So somebody is doing something not in the way that you know is wrong, okay? And you see yourself either ready to say something to them or turning it in on yourself. If you could just laugh. You have a great laugh. You really have a marvelous laugh, Michelle. But that, I mean, just to be able to go, gosh, what's the point? Or why am I so upset about this? And just kind of, not beating yourself up, but just kind of laughing and going, wow, why is this so important? You know? But I mean, when we catch ourselves, that becomes a choice that we can make. But it is, I mean, we all have lifetimes of practice. We're really skilled at living out of our personality and following our impulses. We're really good at it. And it's unconscious. It's simply how we have come to be in the world. And so it takes work, and it takes patience, and it takes a lot of kindness. And I think humor. I love, Al, that you picked up on that. You know, you asked about that. To say, wow, why is this so important? You know? And just sort of go, I'd love a third choice of either hurting somebody else or hurting myself. There really must be a way that hurt isn't involved in the equation. There's an option that means no harm, no foul, you know? But I don't know, catching yourself a little.
Making
Yeah.
the swine jump off the cliff.
Making the swine jump off the cliff. That's what an amusing, it's really quite an amusing story. Yeah.
Oh. And I,
Michelle,
yes,
I appreciate you explaining how you feel, because I'm a 2, you're a 1, right?
yep.
But I think I wing on you, because that's how I feel when somebody I feel is stressing me out. You know, I just want to jump at it, action. And then I feel terrible, like, oh, I did something wrong. I said something wrong. I keep it, that I did something wrong, and feeling hurt when, if I probably would have tried to reel in my actions, it wouldn't have made me feel as bad. But then I think, well, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that?
Oh yeah, Tuesday, I'll think of a great response.
Yes. So I do believe I'm winging off from you. And I like the way you explained it.
And 2, it helps to know that, and we're not really going to get into this unless down the road you really want to, but 1 is a gut-centered. I explained last time that 2, 3, and 4 are heart-centered, so you kind of lead out of your feelings. 5, 6, 7 naturally leads out of their head. 8, 9, 1 leads out of their gut. So that gut response can be one that we just sort of go with it. I mean, it's just, I thought it was very interesting what Wendy and Emily both said today in the sermon about they wouldn't think about whether they would respond. They would just respond. You know, if they think about it, they get in trouble. That sometimes you have this gut response of saying, oh, and it's not as natural to sort of reel that in and just kind of sit with it and go, what else might I do? But I think the first start is if you feel like you want a third option, you want a third way, that can open you to the possibility of finding it, even if you can't come up with it right now.
And
Say, I
and
wanna
I
do this differently.
actually really appreciate you saying swine jumping off the cliff,
Oh, yeah, that's
because
right.
that's planted an image in my head that I could at least laugh at that
Yeah.
if I can remember it, even if that doesn't apply to the particular situation. Maybe I can remember that and it'll push me or pull me.
That's funny. That's
Yeah, oh, it is.
hilarious.
It is
I'm
funny.
laughing at
It
the
is. Oh,
idea
yeah.
of the swine jumping off the cliff.
Right,
And if the
right.
swine is, if you've got this ugly thing happening, whatever it is, instead of attacking the person, banish the issue to those pigs over there and let them just disappear.
Yeah, don't take it into me.
Humor.
Don't
No,
take the
it
demon into
inside
me,
And
but
don't shoot it at them.
right.
Get like I was gesturing before, off to the side sometimes.
Yeah.
With a sense of humor and.
You are also such an artist that I wonder if, and that's such a visual image.
Yeah, maybe
And I wonder
that's, maybe
if
that's.
creating a visual, just some things, some visuals that would help you
Hmm.
have that when you find yourself getting critical or sucking it in, you know, either outwardly, inwardly, to just sort of have an image that, and that's such a great one, that can help you just kind of laugh.
Speech and drama prop at college advised us all, if we ever get fluttered in our stomach, just imagine everybody's naked.
Yeah.
And I was thinking
And,
about that when you were talking
know,
about bloggers.
And don't take it seriously. And darn it, that worked. It works just fine. It's hilarious. It gets me laughing.
There was an issue that would regularly make me angry with Judy. She had an eating obsession, and when we went into a store, she'd go to the candy section. And in couples counseling, this sort of thing got suggested, and our image became squirrel. It worked every time.
Wow.
I mean, it worked every time because it made us laugh, you know, and it didn't mean, you know, I learned that I couldn't stop her if she was going to do that. But we were both more aware. It cued us to both be more aware of what we're feeling, because it was an oft repeating, you know, type of issue. So squirrel.
And I'm such a not squirrel person. Yeah.
Schnauzer runners don't attack.
That's great. Anything else before we just sort of look at what at least the writers of this sort of say are helpful next steps for trying to integrate this into our lives? Anything else that what we've talked about? Anything else that's been brought up before we go into that? If you look then at the third page of the Enneagram and Spiritual Practice handout, and you all who are on Zoom, you got that in the email last night, is that correct? Do you know what this document we're talking about?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So on the third page of the handout, 7 tools for transformation. And again, these are ideas irrespective of type that these writers feel are ways of integrating and helping to make this real and not just something that we think about once in a while, but to really try to, what we need fully, and we can't just look to this to make everything great. But this is just sort of ways, if we, you know, so the opening paragraph, if we want to use the Enneagram on our journey of self-discovery, we're going to need more than interesting information about the 9 types. This map of the soul can become useful only when we combine it with some other key ingredients. To this end, we offer 7 tools that we have found to be indispensable for the spiritual journey. And Michelle, what you were saying is so apropos to that, because you know, you sort of said, I have these two ways of responding when I'm angry. And I want a third choice, but you just kind of look at the sheet that I handed out and you go, I just kind of laugh at this. This is exactly, so it's not just, okay, I have this information and now I can do it. But it's like, we look at that and we try it out in a larger context. So number one, seeking truth. If we're interested in transformation, no element is more important than developing a love of truth. Seeking the truth means being curious about what is going on in ourselves and around us, not settling for the automatic answers that our personality feeds us. If we observe ourselves, we will see that many of the stock explanations that we give ourselves for our behavior or for the actions of others are a form of resistance. They are a way of avoiding seeing more deeply into our current state. For example, one stock answer might be, I'm really angry at my father, but a deeper truth might be, I really love him and desperately want his love. Both levels of truth might be difficult for our personality to accept. It could take a long time to admit that we are angry with our father and even longer to acknowledge the love beneath the anger. Acting on the impulse means that we short circuit the sitting with something that might lead to that second deeper sense of I'm really angry at him because I want his love. Does that make sense? So seeking that truth and not responding to the initial reaction of hurt or resentment or anger, but to say, what else? Just let it sit. And if you do any kind of meditation practice, what the practice is you notice a feeling or a thought that emerges and you don't grasp onto it. You notice it and then you let it go and see what else comes out. So you're not latching onto the impulse. As we learn, go ahead.
I gather you're also not saying, no, I can't be feeling that way.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a judgment. You're not judging, saying this is what I want to draw in, or this is what I need to repel this. It's just like, oh, interesting.
Here they are.
That came up. Here it is. Yeah. And then you open yourself to see what else comes. So it's a very non-judgmental. Exactly. Nothing, you're never saying, I mean, all of us have been told you shouldn't feel that way. What a horrible thing to say. So, and it's totally worthless. But we've all been told that in some way. You shouldn't think that, you shouldn't feel that, you shouldn't do that. As opposed to being curious about, I wonder where this feeling's coming from. But in the meditation aspect is simply you notice that feeling, you notice that thought, and then you just kind of move on. You just sort of go.
The scenario you laid out, Michelle, sounds to me like it's truth. The annoyance that is triggering you is actually an annoyance.
Yeah.
It's actually real.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
trying to pretend that it isn't is not seeing the truth. And being annoyed inside is also the truth. So the third way is going to be something different. Not what you see, not what you feel, but hey, let's get free of this.
So like, why am I saying
Bust out of this present.
Yeah.
Where's the key?
Can I at least sing while I'm stuck there?
Right. Yes. You know? Or think about pigs jumping into
Right.
water.
Yeah,
Water,
that sounds
you know?
great.
Yeah. Pick your Bible verse and.
That's okay.
Right.
As we learn to accept what is real in the present moment, we are more able to accept whatever arises in us because we know that it is not the whole of us. The truth encompasses both our fearful reactions and the greater resources of our soul. While our automatic reactions can derail our search for the truth, acknowledging their presence brings us closer to the truth. When we are willing to be with the whole truth, whatever it is, we have more inner resources available to deal with whatever we are facing. all of us are wired not to look at all of the truths, the various layers of truth that are there. Because we are wired to protect ourselves. We are wired for survival. And when we have been hurt, especially young, when we have been hurt or shamed, or we have been told you cannot feel that way, you cannot do that, you can't show that, you can't be that, then our brain learns, or our personality forms to the extent that we will do whatever we can to avoid that. Because our brains perceive that that is a threat to my very existence. So I can't do that. Not doing. Number 2. The process of transformation sometimes seems paradoxical because we speak of struggle and effort as well as allowing, accepting, and letting go. The resolution of these apparent opposites lies in the concept of not doing. Once we understand not doing, we see that the real struggle is to relax into greater awareness so that we can see the manifestations of our personality. By neither acting on our automatic impulses nor suppressing them, we begin to understand what is causing them to arise. Not acting on our impulses creates openings through which we can catch glimpses of what we are really up to. Those glimpses often become some of our most important lessons. Any responses to that? Me not jumping to writing about all my sadness last Thursday kept me from giving my personality free rein. Not doing. Simply, and so as we notice an impulse to go to do something, to reel it in enough just to sort of say, oh, that's really interesting that I'm feeling compelled to do that right now, that I have a desire to do that right now. What's going on? Or what else might, if I just sit for a while, what might happen? Because I can always do it later, and it's not going away. You can do that. But to take a moment to really go, what else might I do? Or not? What else?
If I could,
Yeah, Judy.
well, in my job, we sometimes get criticized for the coverage that we provide our readers.
Right.
And the criticism, probably often, really irks me. And I find my boss always wants us to respond to our clients. And so I find that if I let it sit a day or a week, that the response is far more even keeled than what I would send in an email upon receiving their missive.
And how do you understand that? Why is that the case?
Because I have learned that that's the case.
Your experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I blow up at staff, and early at being publisher, that was not a good practice I found. And that it was much better to sit in my office and stew. Until I felt myself calm down. And then one of the techniques is, instead of directing my suggested corrections to the person, is to the staff. Now, sometimes I get the sense the person that I'm really talking to doesn't get it. I've said it, and then I can go back later if it repeats and say, now in staff meeting, we talked about. And it's a little smoother in dealing with corrective action.
Mhm. Great example. Yeah, not doing, giving yourself permission not to respond to what might be coming up in you or being asked of you from the outside. You know, to say to somebody who might be expecting a response, you know, we give kids time out, right? Because
Yeah.
they're overwhelmed by their feelings. They are not able to control themselves. We need to give ourselves time out when we realize I'm not in a space to make a good decision right now. If I act in this moment, it will not be pretty. So you give yourself time out so you are not reacting out of that place of hurt.
The other thing I found helpful was that when I do draft an email, well, sometimes I email a response, sometimes I call them.
Uh-huh.
But if it's an email and I'm still not cool, I'll send it by my boss first.
Yes, yeah. Brilliant.
And he's really good at smoothing things out.
Yeah.
So I got my anger out. He read it. And then I can send something a little more even keeled to the client.
I mean, that speaks to number 4 on this list of getting proper support. None of us can do this really well by ourselves. So to have someone we trust, an individual, a group, whatever, to toss things by to say, hey, what does this sound like to you? This is what I want to be saying. This is how I want to be responding. What does this sound like? How well does that work? How well does this do it? That's huge, because that takes us pressure off ourselves to think it's just up to us. You get that other set of eyes and ears, and it's like, wow, yeah, they can affirm that, or they can say, if that's what you want to do, then I don't think this is let's try a second draft or a 12th draft or whatever it is. But yeah, that's huge, Judy. I'm so glad you have your boss that your boss is someone who can really serve that role for you. Number 3 in there that we passed over is willingness to be open. And the second paragraph, there are times in my life I would not have believed that, but I really believe it now. Every moment, so number 3, the second paragraph, and willing to be open, every moment has the possibility of delighting us, nurturing us, supporting us, if we are here to see it. Which gets back to the number 1 on the first page, which is showing up, being present to right now. And that's what that time on the porch for me on Thursday morning got me to, because I didn't give in to the sad. I could see what was delightful right in front of me, right out my screen. And it was there, and it's always been there. But a lot of times I don't see it because I'm stuck in my feelings. So that willingness to be open. Life is a tremendous gift, but most of us are missing it because we are watching a mental movie of our lives instead. As we learn to trust in the moment and to value awareness, we learn how to turn off the internal movie projector and start living a much more interesting life, the one we are actually starring in.
Movie projector is living in the past.
The movie projector is living the life that because it's already made. There's nothing new happening. So it's showing the movie that we expect to live of our lives. And this is how it goes. This is
bad writers.
Yeah, bad writers. We're bad writers. Yes, we're not the best writer. So allowing something new to happen, something unexpected to happen, something we never imagined to happen, and that would never be part of the movie that we've written, because that is stuck in the past. That's a really great point, Suzanne. then learning from everything. Once we've involved ourselves in the process of transformation, we understand that whatever is occurring in the present moment is what we need to deal with right now. All of us are good at escaping the reality that's in front of us. And it will not go away. We can do it for a while and it will come back. So if this moment is what is happening right now, that's what's real, then how do I respond to what's real right now? How do I acknowledge it? How do I not try to escape it? How do I face it so at least I know, okay, this is, I need to face this. And this might not be a great time to do it. Things come up that we don't have the luxury to put everything else on hold to be able to do, or we might not know how to respond because it's caught us so off guard. But it has to be dealt with. And to trust yourself to be able to deal with it with support is a huge growth, because it's no longer about convincing ourselves that it's overwhelming, that there's no way we can handle it. Number 6, cultivating a real love of self. And I think this distinction is really helpful. It's been said many times that we cannot love others if we do not love ourselves. But what does this mean? We usually think that it has something to do with having self-esteem or with giving ourselves emotional goodies to compensate for our feelings of deficiency. Perhaps, but one central aspect of a mature love of ourselves is caring about our growth sufficiently that we do not flee from the discomfort or pain of our actual condition. I have never thought about self-love in that way. And I think, for me at least, that is a remarkably important addition to trying to care about myself enough, a mature love of ourselves, to trust ourselves enough that I don't need to run away from this discomfort or pain of what's reality and what reality is. We must love ourselves enough not to abandon ourselves. And we abandon ourselves to the degree that we are not fully present to our lives. When we're caught up in worry, fantasy, tension, anxiety, we become dissociated from our bodies and our feelings and ultimately from our true nature. I don't know what that sounds like to any of you. That distinction is as wise to you as it certainly strikes me. I love myself enough not to run away from what's going on. And that being love, not stupidity. And then finally, the having a practice. And that comes from any, as it says, most spiritual teachings stress the importance of some kind of practice, meditation, prayer, yoga, relaxation, movement, something that helps us integrate it, and something to help us be in the world in a way that helps us be the most centered and open that we possibly can. You can read the rest of that number 7. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea around, or an idea around trying to keep this from just being an appendage or something, this whole Enneagram idea, but to try to say, how do we bring it into
The mics went off.
this in private time. And Ms. Brene Brown talks about doing nothing.
Uh-huh,
Doing nothing can be very, very creative.
uh-huh.
I do a lot of do nothing.
No, it is, and it's just simply, yeah,
I
Yeah.
keep thinking about the time I waste doing nothing.
Hmm.
But I'm always thinking,
Yeah.
Not wasted.
not,
well, it can be exhausting, it can give guilt.
but it is, it's
not
making,
doing-
what you're doing is you're creating space and you're being open and you're not doing. Yeah, the things that you speak of is on several of this list of the not doing.
And see, that gives me guilt for what I,
And then
Not
that's,
doing.
yeah, then you can laugh at that joke, like, and laugh at the guilt that it brings up.
I gave up guilt a long time ago.
Okay, my dad called retirement busyness without guilt. That was his way of describing retirement. Anything else from this? Okay, so like I said, if stuff comes up, as you're looking through any of this stuff that you would like to talk about more fully, I'm super happy to connect with you and explore that.
I have a question. Who's the author of this particular?
The two writers, one's last name is Riso, and the other one's last name is Hudson, Riso and Hudson. This is,
Hudson?
yes, that's one of the classic, this is one of the classic Enneagram texts. So Riso and Hudson are the ones who wrote this spirituality in the Enneagram thing that I handed out.
I guess as I'm reading it, I see if, and I replace that with when.
Okay? Yeah,
It's not a matter of
it's
if.
not a matter of if. Anyone else? Okay, thanks for being on this together. And for the honesty, it's really, what makes this real is when people have been able to express, hey, this is what I experienced, because then other people have said, oh, just like Arnell did with Michelle, saying, thank you so much for saying that, because that really helps me see how I can go to my one wing and have a similar experience. So thank you very, very, very much. Really, really appreciate it.
So what's next?
I think, well, so we might look, in terms of formal stuff, I think we're just gonna take the rest of the summer off. I'm thinking probably I might do what I've done before, which are sermon talkbacks, which just mean that after, and since you don't come to the services here, that might not be terribly stimulating for you, Suzanne, but you could still tell me what I should have said.
I don't tell people what they should do.
No, I know you're not, just joking. But sometimes what I've done for at least a few weeks over 3 or 4 weeks over the summer is for people who've heard the sermon, just to come back and to talk about the themes that came up and ask questions. And it helps me just kind of hear what you've heard and where you might have gone with it, or what might have been meaningful and what might not have been meaningful. Yeah, so I might do that for some weeks. But yeah, in terms of formal stuff, we'll start again the Sunday after Labor Day for formal Sunday morning stuff. And yeah, just stay tuned about what that topic will be. I know sometime in the fall, Don Luck is going to look at Buddhism. Yeah.
And then part of September, you're on your honeymoon?
Yes. Yeah, I love the way you said that. You're right.
Is that what you're considering it?
And
Yes.
what I'm thinking of, what I've asked the 3 people who are preaching while I'm away, I sort of asked them to just bring a one-off topic that they might like, something that's been on their mind that they might like to do for a class on that particular Sunday.
Who are your substitutes?
My substitutes for September and the first Sunday of October. This is, I can even say them in order. They are all folks who are involved in this church, and then Al is preaching for me at the end of our Reformation Sunday, when I'm preaching at a church I was a student minister for in Connecticut. Which is wild. They're having their 25th anniversary of their becoming the equivalent of reconciling in Christ. And the pastor I worked with was the pastor who led them through that process. So they're celebrating their 25th anniversary and asked me to come out to do that. So
Actually, Al won't be preaching on October 31st. This guy
Yes.
named Luther.
Martin Luther, yes,
Okay.
yes. So
I think he's got about
Some of it,
55 books worth of material to pick from, eh?
Is role playing?
Maybe, I don't know.
So Emlyn Ott is preaching on the 18th. Don Luck is preaching on the 25th. And Julie Hudson, a new member of the church who works at the seminary, is preaching on October the 2nd. Okay. So, yeah, so I've invited each of them to sort of think about, is there something they might like to do as a one-time topic? So, okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Julie, I found the wing stuff from last week. Reading a bit more. It's like you and I both being one. No, not like. But yeah, I'm the other wing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but there are some things that I do.
What's up for you today?
Yeah, I wasn't doubting that we're both ones, but I'm just trying to figure out how to see that. And yeah, we're different wings of it, so.
Because
Might go to.
one of,
Oh,
they were by, what, yeah.
Looks like it might be.
By one.
yum. Yum.
On the back of the kitchen table where the dog can't possibly sit. So she has a crosswalk and she's enjoying her party. Has recently, I know. But it was.
Oh, yes.
This, that
And
is a
that,
problem.
the hardback.
This, I was gonna say,
This is not such a big
we
problem.
can deal with this reality.
But then I've never quite
We can
understood.
deal with this
I
reality.
mean, I understand why there's need to make. Persons-
It's really nice to see both.
Persons said that there's things that I haven't figured out why in the world the ebooks.
Yes.
Because you know, they've got
Online version.
that haven't been printed, that haven't been done, that haven't been stored. Cost the same.
Well, the book that you read, there's sort of like, wait, this new book is. What's the one?
Did they just go in and out?
Printing.
Well, it's because of the kind of mic it is.
And she says that
And
there are.
I wouldn't want you to do
PDFs.
anything other than be natural.
I mean,
Whenever you turn to the side,
Yeah.
it's a directional mic, so whenever you turn to the side.
So I'm still not at the end of the chapter of the book, but I'm at the end. of
So it's the mic.
Yeah, maybe I
Okay,
should
well,
just go to a
I'm
handheld for
doing-
the sermon.
I'm doing Sapiens,
kind of
an
work.
audiobook.
Is the.
I'm ready.
The ear one.
That works.
Yeah.
That follows.
Yeah.
That knows
Great.
where you go.
Yeah.
Subtitle of
Yeah.
Brief History of
And I noticed it
Humankind.
today while sitting,
I'm
I'm
and
just
it's by
sitting in back and watching right
Mhm.
now.
a
and
professor of history.
Was able to, one does the audio, one does video, and I kind of tuned in because of these
And I
last
have
3
no
weeks.
idea how to pronounce his name. He
Oh,
teaches
yeah,
until
now I see
the,
what, because
and I'm
it's when you
guessing
would
it was
turn,
part of
when I see you
history.
turn over here, then
And
the
I
audio
didn't-
would drop there.
In part because my
Yeah.
dog,
And that neither one of them
Looks
can really
at a
see
rapid
it. I had
pace.
to be sitting,
There's
Watching.
some kind of fragrance of the glue or the
watching them do
Yeah,
their thing.
right now I think it's
So
glue
here she was
because she like
messing with the audio.
zeroes in on the hardback spider cover.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
It's an annoyance.
Yeah.
Wearing the
It
damn
has-
thing is an
yeah,
annoyance, but it
Yeah,
it
but
works.
it works, yeah.
It works. I've had to use them
Mhm.
when we,
That's
that's
his
what
name.
we adopted that.
No idea how to pronounce it first.
Yeah.
At first, but eventually we're just.
Right. Right.
I
But
would
The
hazard,
the thing
I would
was,
hazard
last,
saying Noah, but yeah, but.
last week, the last 3 weeks.
I don't know.
When your mic was on, I had to pump the system way up to 50. And when everything else was happening, then I had to go down to 30 to avoid being blown out.
It was a summer reading pick for Obama, Gates, and Zuckerberg. Says he's a renowned historian. Comes a groundbreaking narrative of humanity's creation and evolution. That explores the ways in which biology and history have defined and enhanced our understanding of what it means to be